Please join as we light the chalice with these words. We promise to listen and learn together with compassion, curiosity, and an open mind. Engage in creating a warm and welcoming community. Work together and beyond our walls to address social and environmental challenges, and with our time, talent, and treasure, support our church and its mission.
So this morning, before we sing the children off to RE, we are going to watch a 5-minute or so video from PBS News regarding the James Webb Space Telescope. So I'm sure that most of you have heard of this in some capacity, and some of the images are just absolutely amazing. So if anyone feels the need to move closer to be able to see, please do that. The kids are welcome to come and sit in the front if they would like, or you can stay in your spot, whichever you prefer.
This reaches of space to our very own Milky Way galaxy. NASA's James Webb Space Telescope, the largest and most powerful of its kind, launched last Christmas and released its first image in July, the deepest, sharpest view we've ever seen of the universe. Since then, it has captured faraway star nurseries, cosmic cliffs, and galactic clusters. Anyone can see that the images carry breathtaking beauty and astonishing scale, but what do they actually tell us about our cosmos? PBS NewsHour science correspondent Miles O'Brien joins us now to help decipher it all. Miles, it's great to speak with you.
Jeff, likewise.
So let's put up a few of these images. We'll start with this one, because when we look at this deep field image, we're actually looking at thousands of galaxies. Is that right?
Thousands of galaxies we've never seen before. They trained the Webb telescope at a piece of the sky that was pretty much dark. And what did they see? Thousands of galaxies that we didn't know existed. It's an extraordinary thing when you think about it. That's one-time exposure, one tiny little piece of sky. I don't know about you, but it sure makes me seem a little bit smaller. The other thing that's kind of interesting about this is you'll see some artifacts in there, some kind of, looks like smears almost, or blurs. That is a phenomenon we call gravitational lensing. And what that means is the stars that are closest to us actually warp the light and create nature's own telescope to make it easier for us to see galaxies behind it. So by refracting the light, they actually magnify what's behind it. So we're actually getting a little bonus above and beyond what Webb does, which is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, a little assist there from nature. The Webb Space Telescope, as you mentioned, I mean, it allows us to look far into space, seeing how stars and planets and galaxies evolve. This next image is something that I didn't even know existed. It's a stellar nursery. Tell us about this.
Yeah, welcome to Galaxy Daycare, I guess. This is a stellar nursery. This is the Orion Nebula. That's a well-documented piece of the sky. Hubble has looked at it for years, but this is by far the most detailed look at it that we've ever gotten. It's about 1,350 light years away, for those of you keeping score. And what you're seeing there is all kinds of ionized and molecular gases and dust being scattered. And if you look over on the side, there's a trio. There's a cluster of stars called the trapezium cluster. They're the ones that are doing all the damage. When a star is young, it's hot. It's kind of like a lot of things, I suppose. And it is kicking up a lot of energy and clearing off all that space, creating what we call the Orion bar, which is that angular sort of cloud-like object in the center of the screen.
So let's move to this next image. This is an image of Jupiter. And scientists, as I understand it, they were really surprised at how well Webb was able to get this image of Jupiter. Why is that?
Well, if nothing else, the great red spot is white in this spectrum. No, but seriously, the amount of detail in Jupiter is extraordinary to them. You know, Jupiter is just filled, it's a maelstrom of storms. You know, that red spot is basically a storm that would envelop the entire planet of Earth. And there's auroras that have become evident in looking at this picture. There's all kinds of indications as far as the cloud levels and layers. It's an attempt to get beneath the surface. The surface of Jupiter is pretty fascinating. And when we say surface, of course, it's not a hard surface, but beneath it has always been pretty much a mystery, and this is helping us get beyond that.
And this last image is a personal favorite. It's a cosmic cliff. Tell us about this one.
Yeah, it doesn't get prettier than this.
Yeah.
You know, this is science, but we can also enjoy it too for those of us who don't know the science very well. One thing you should know, this is the cosmic cliffs, the Carina Nebula. This is the one that's going to be on the covers of textbooks, I predict, because how do you get better than that? But you know, it's worth pointing out here, an interesting point of this, Jeff, is that the images that are captured by Webb are in the infrared spectrum, which is to say we can't see them. So basically it's like a black and white image that comes down from space. It is put on a repository that is available to the general public. And members of the public are going in and creating these, sort of putting in a visible spectrum on top of the infrared to allow the human eye to see it. And so there's a certain bit of artistic interpretation that goes along with this. And a lot of people out there can join in if they want to. But what you're seeing there is, again, this tremendous energy and dynamism as the universe is in its formation. This is a rare time for a galaxy. Only it lasts about a few tens of thousands of years at this stage of formation. And the fact that Webb has gotten a picture of it is, you know, a pretty priceless baby picture for some young stars.
Yeah, I'll say. Miles O'Brien, the best of the best. Thanks so much for being with us.
You're welcome, Jeff.
That was amazing. We'll now sing our children out to their RE classes.
Whoever you are, whoever you love, whatever you struggle with or celebrate, you are welcome here. My worship associate this morning is Linda Rio. Our music will be provided by Jamie Passman, Julia Beckman and the Celebration Singers, and Dennis Seegit on guitar. Visitors, please check in at the visitors table at the back of the sanctuary to get a name tag and sign up to receive our weekly email, News and Notes. Some quick highlights from News and Notes this week. Hopefully everyone is receiving it. By the way, the office knows if you read it or not particularly who, but how many people do. So open it and read it. Today at 12:30 p.m., there is the Summer Read book discussion. Where is that at, guys? Is that online or in person? Anyone know? No? No? Okay. Hopefully, if you're interested in that, you know where it's at. Monday at 7 p.m. is the Buddhist meditation. Tuesday is the Wise Elders Gathering and the Nonfiction Book Group. And Thursday is the breakfast group. And then next Sunday after service is the Animal Ministry meeting. We will now do our Joys and Concerns candle lighting. Please remember that we are live on YouTube. So if you are mentioning a name, please just mention the first name so we can protect people's privacy. If you have anything dancing or weighing on your heart this morning, please come up to share.
Time when I'm grieving. So I want to thank all of you even if I don't get around to writing you a note. I want to thank all of you for your caring. Thank you.
Hi, I'm John. The beginning of June of this year was rather chaotic for me, as well as I think for the church. And it didn't give me a chance to actually say a proper goodbye to this congregation that has been a part of my life for over 20 years. But more so, what I wanted to do was to thank the leadership of UCH and to thank you, the congregation, for allowing me the latitude to use this building and the other building as my blank canvases to do what I used to do for this church. I really enjoyed doing that, and the liberty that you gave me to express myself artistically is something that feeds my heart and my soul. So of all things, that's what I wanted to thank you for. So thank you. God bless. Hopefully I'll be back at some other point in time.
We light 3 final candles, one for the joys and concerns that are too tender to share out loud, one for the universe in which we live as we grow to learn more and more about it, and the third for our country and its leaders. May they remember where they live and who they work for. In and out. Put your feet flat on the floor. If you feel comfortable, close your eyes. Perhaps you can imagine some of the images that you saw from the James Webb Telescope or other images that you've seen of our universe. As you breathe in, remember that you are made of stardust. And as you breathe out, remember that you will return to stardust. Every breath is precious.
Our first reading is adapted from the Dalai Lama on quantum physics and spirituality. The Dalai Lama believes that the connection between quantum physics and spirituality is obvious. According to the world-renowned spiritual guide and teacher, all of the atoms in your body include part of the ancient canvas that used to make up the universe. You're stardust, connected biologically to all living creatures. You're made of invisible, humming energy, connected all at once to everything that exists. Science and spirituality haven't always coexisted harmoniously. In the Middle Ages and the Enlightenment, it was very dangerous to be a scientist or talk about scientific principles. Society at the time was dominated by the church, and anything else was hearsay. These days, the scientific world criticizes spiritual ideas and theories. To claim that these two traditionally opposing worlds are suddenly in harmony would be an overstatement. However, now there are proposals that link these two ideas in new ways that invite you to reflect. Buddhist philosophy, for example, provides a framework for exploring a fascinating and complex area of science, quantum physics. The first time anyone brought these two concepts together was in 2015 in New Delhi. The Dalai Lama went to a 2-day conference about quantum physics and Mahatmiki philosophy, where a group of physicists and scientists from diverse fields looked for commonalities between different subjects. They believed that finding these commonalities would further enrich our human knowledge. Let's take a look at what the Dalai Lama talked about in his 2015 conference in India. What's quantum physics? The term quantum refers to the smallest possible quantity of energy. As such, what quantum mechanics seek to understand is the phenomenology of the atom and also the elemental particles that make up the atom. Quantum physics is an important and complex discipline. It seeks to define and understand that which you can't see or measure. Quantum physicists try to comprehend the indeterminism that parts of the particles that make up reality. Thanks to quantum physics, we now know that if you looked at an atom under a microscope, you'd see a small tornado. In this tornado, quarks and photons spin around and around. If you get even closer to the atom, you'd discover something more amazing, a vacuum. That's because atoms have no physical structure. They're made of invisible energy, not tangible material. The idea that we're made of energy is one of the pillars of the connection between quantum physics and spirituality. The connection between quantum physics and spirituality is still relevant due to the principles that the Dalai Lama laid out during his conference. Quantum physics demonstrates that energy is beyond everything tangible and material. Buddhism has always defended the idea and the need to transcend the physical in order to give your consciousness more relevance. At the end of the day, your mental impressions are what shape and form your reality. You are what you think, and what you think shapes your surroundings. The behavior of microparticles changes depending on what the observer does. When an observer looks, there's a type of wave. When the experimenter doesn't act, there's no change. That demonstrates how sensitive atoms are to everything that we do. Buddhism also stresses the same concept. Your emotions and thoughts define you and your reality. Within every atom, you can find part of the stardust that comes from the very beginning of the universe. In some way, as the Dalai Lama says, we're all connected and form part of the same essence. Understanding this connection can help us understand the importance of being good. That's because everything you do reverberates in the universe and comes back to you. In conclusion, the connection between quantum physics and spirituality invites you to see this area of science through a very different lens. It's a more subjective perspective, perhaps. Although orthodox minds may not accept it, it still deserves our attention. Thus ends the reading. Please rise and bow to your spirit if you are able, and join us in hymn number 10,064, which is in the smaller teal hymnal, Blue Boat Home.
I've been sailing all my life.
Our second reading is by Thich Nhat Hanh, When My Mother Died. The day my mother died, I wrote in my journal, "A serious misfortune of my life has arrived." I suffered for more than 1 year after the passing of my mother. But one night in the highlands of Vietnam, I was sleeping in the hut in my hermitage. I dreamed of my mother. I saw myself sitting with her, and we were having a wonderful talk. She looked young and beautiful, and her hair was flowing down. It was so pleasant to sit there and talk to her as if she had never died. When I woke up, it was about 2 a.m, and I felt very strongly that I had never lost my mother. The impression that my mother was still with me was very clear. I understood then that the idea of having lost my mother was just an idea. It was obvious in that moment that my mother is always alive in me. I opened the door and went outside. The entire hillside was bathed in moonlight. It was a hill covered with tea plants, and my hut was set behind the temple halfway up. Walking slowly in the moonlight through the rows of tea plants, I noticed my mother was still with me. She was the moonlight caressing me as she had done so often, very tender, very sweet, wonderful. Each time my feet touched the earth, I knew my mother was there with me. I knew this body was not mine, but a living continuation of my mother and my father and my grandparents and my great-grandparents, of all my ancestors. Those feet that I saw as my feet were actually our feet. Together, my mother and I were leaving footprints in the damp soil. From that moment on, the idea that I had lost my mother no longer existed. All I had to do was look at the palm of my hand, feel the breeze on my face, or the earth under my feet, to remember that my mother is always with me, available at any time. Thus ends the reading.
Albert Einstein said, and everybody knows this quote, right? There are only 2 ways to live your life. One is though nothing is a miracle. The other is though everything is a miracle. Sitting in the Adler Planetarium, who has been to the Adler? If you haven't been to the Adler, you need to go. I think it's fully open. It is amazing. In the Granger Sky Theater, watching the secrets of the universe unfold in front of me, I feel my connection to all of time and space. The universe in all its vastness is also inside of me, and I am in it. The paradox is breathtaking. So many of the intensely spiritual moments of my life have involved science. To me, seeing a vast galaxy or learning a new fact about the world is a religious experience. The question is, why? Spirituality and science are supposed to be separate. Certainly, religion and facts have been on the opposite side of many debates in the past few years. The answer is connection. For many, spirituality is a connection to the world around them, to their ancestors, to their past, to their future. To me, that is what science also provides. As humans, we are full of wonder, and science is that wonder and curiosity played out in the world around us. We see an object fall to the ground, and we ask ourselves, why does that happen? We see the stars, and we imagine them as shapes in the sky representing our worldview and telling our stories. We send a state-of-the-art telescope into space, and when we get the images back, we are awed and amazed and humbled. And not only that, but we take those images and then we offer them to the public to create art. Did you catch that part of that? That they take the images and they're not in the visible spectrum for humans, So people create what they think it looks like from those images. And so it's like this combination, right, of art and science, and it's just breathtakingly gorgeous. There's so much I do not know. I readily admit that. My children already know much more than I ever will, especially about science. When most people do not know something, they either turn to science or religion for an answer. Why do those little moments of synchronicity happen in the world, right? Why did Julie and I think of the same song, right? Why does my best friend text me just as I'm thinking of her? There's actually a study that was done where they randomly assigned groups of people to either think of their mothers, or in the other group they didn't tell them anything, and then they recorded phone calls that they received. And guess which group got more phone calls from their mother? Without any other interventions at all. Just thinking of your mother made it more likely that she would call you. Why do we feel the presence of a loved one long gone from this physical plane? Interestingly, the answer may actually lie in science. Quantum physics, to be exact. Quantum physics is the study of matter and energy at the most fundamental level. It aims to uncover the properties and behaviors of the very building blocks of nature. While many quantum experiments examine very small objects, such as electrons and photons, quantum phenomena are all around us, acting on every scale. The Italian theoretical physicist Rovelli says, time, Einstein long ago showed, is relative. Time passes more slowly for an object moving faster than another object, for example. In this relative world, an absolute now is more or less meaningless. Time, then, is not some separate quality that impassively flows around us. Time is part of a complicated geometry woven together with the geometry of space. For Rovelli, there is more. According to his theorizing, time itself disappears at the most fundamental level. His theories ask us to accept the notion that time is merely a function of our blurred human perception. We see the world only through a glass darkly. We are watching Plato's shadow play in the cave, unquote. I do not claim to understand quantum physics on any more than the most basic of levels. But in it, and in astronomy, biology, etc., I see hope and connection. The same feelings we search out when we come to church each Sunday, right? Take, for example, quantum entanglement. Who here has heard of quantum entanglement? Okay, well, this is good. According to Science Daily, so you're going to learn something new right now. Quantum entanglement is a quantum mechanical phenomenon in which the quantum states of two or more objects have to be described with reference to each other, even though the individual objects may be spatially separated. So they've done some studies where things seem to be connected, where it doesn't make sense that they would be connected, right? There's no actual connection between them. And so quantum entanglement is this idea that there are some things that are connected that we really don't understand why, at least at this point. Sounds a lot like my best friend texting me because I thought of them, or that feeling that my mother is with me even though she has passed, right? Children leave DNA in their mother's bodies. Who's heard this before? Specifically, they've studied it with male children. I'm interested to find out if it's probably, I think, a ubiquitous thing. We know this from biology, which inextricably changes the mother's DNA. So there are changes that happen within the mother's body and brain that go on much past the time that she gives birth. Perhaps there are connections between these cells that we do not understand that ultimately cause what we would call a mother's intuition. Perhaps one day science will have an explanation for these things that we will accept as easily as we accept flying in a metal tube high above the earth for hours at a time. something that surely seemed impossible less than 200 years ago, right? Can you imagine the first person who's like, yeah, we're going to be able to fly in the sky, it'll be fine, right? That won't cause any issues. People used to think, this is really funny, that women couldn't travel on a train at a certain speed because it would somehow cause their uterus to dislodge from their body. So, you know, it kind of makes you think that, I'm sure it was. Perhaps we will master time travel, or even change our perception of time so it no longer exists. There's a theory out there that time is actually, you know how we see in different dimensions, right? So if time is a dimension, it's just a dimension that we can't really see in. It actually exists just like space does, right? Where you can move from place to place, but we don't perceive it that way. We perceive it in much the same way. If something is in 2D, you perceive it as a straight line, right? So it's linear from our perspective, but there could be another being that could perceive time in a different way and would perceive it much more like we perceive space. So that would make time travel kind of even irrelevant, right? You just kind of see it in the way that it actually exists. Teleportation might be as easy as using the microwave. Hopefully not use as much radiation. These things impact our physical and practical lives, right? I mean, who wouldn't love teleportation? Like, how much would it cost to have straight teleportation into like Disney World, right? Like, that would be amazing. But they also impact our perception of the world and our connections to others, right? If we can teleport or time travel, think about what that means with our connection to others. If we see time as merely a construct of our limited human brains, we can continue to feel our connections to our loved ones long after they die. If we know that everything is connected on the quantum level, we can truly understand the impact we have on the world. So like the Dalai Lama said, the reason to be good is that we're connected to everything. So everything that we do, right, matters. If we are all connected in this way, then we all matter. We all have worth and dignity just by our existence. Sound familiar? Carl Sagan once said, "Every one of us is, in the cosmic perspective, precious. If a human disagrees with you, let him live. In 100 billion galaxies, you will not find another." The Bible says, it's Ecclesiastes, I wasn't sure I could pronounce that, 3:20. All go to the same place. All come from dust, and to dust all return. Maybe that Bible verse, interpreted so many different times through so many different lenses, is merely missing one star. All go to the same place. All come from stardust, and to stardust all return.
So here's our opportunity to be good by being connected through our offertory. Please join as our offertory is collected, and we say these words together. This church is made up of all of us. It is what we learn together, the work we do together, the fun we have together. It is what we share with one another, with the people around us, and with all the world.
Before we extinguish the chalice, I want to take a moment to recognize our musicians this morning because I think they did such a beautiful job. So give everyone a round of applause.
As we extinguish the chalice, please say our chalice extinguishing words together. Got it. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of its truth, the warmth of this community, nor the fire of our commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with all the world.
Our closing words are from Joan Jett. Life is strong and fragile. It's a paradox. It's both things, like quantum physics. It's a particle and a wave at the same time. It all exists together. Amen and blessed be.